So today I want to go over what I think is one of the strongest builds currently in Diablo 4, and that being the Pulverized Druid. Now the basis of this build is just being a super tanky bear that slams the ground to do massive AoE damage. And it's a pretty simple build to play, but it's easily one of the best builds for general gameplay in Diablo 4. Clearing tons of enemies very quickly running through dungeons and clearing out all the enemies as you go, being incredibly tanky, being unstoppable the majority of time while in combat. This is just an incredibly strong all-around build. Now all of the damage of this build is going to be built around Pulverize, which at a baseline you turn to a werebear, slam the ground doing some AoE damage, but then mix in with our main legendary aspect causes this to be just an incredibly strong AoE damaging effect that can kill enemies off your screen. So our main legendary aspect that's going to be on our weapon is Pulverize creates a shockwave that travels forward, dealing up to 200% of its damage to targets in its path. So this just makes our ability basically deal double damage, and it turns it into a much longer range attack. So basically it turns us into a range skill. You can easily kill enemies off of your screen, and the shockwave of this is massive. So you're basically going to be hitting everything on your screen with all of your damage every time you cast Pulverize. And because this build is so built around Pulverize, it's pretty easy to go through your skill tree. First off, we're putting 1 point into Earth Spike, which is going to be our generator when we need to generate some additional spirit. It is a range generator, and if you have a certain unique item, you'll also be able to cast this while in werebear form. Then upgrade 1, it has a chance to stun enemies. Upgrade 2, you fortify 4% of your base life if you hit CC'd enemies. And fortify is also going to be a massive part of this build. With how I have it set up right now, I'm basically fortified 100% of my life 100% of the time. Then next up, we have Pulverize. Put 5 points into this, our main damage. Upgrade 1, your Pulverize will now overpower every 12 seconds you remain healthy. We also overpower quite a bit, so this is going to deal a lot more damage. And since we have so much fortify life, overpower is just going to be dealing that much more damage. Then primal Pulverize, whenever you hit an enemy with Pulverize, they deal 20% reduced damage for 4 seconds. Very good to help you stay alive even longer. Then into the defensive category, 1 point into Earthen Bulwark. This is basically just giving yourself a big barrier. This is also going to have a really long duration with some of our additional legendary aspects. Upgrade 1, you're unstoppable while this is active, one of our ways to become unstoppable. Upgrade 2, when you cast this, you also get a pretty big fortify. Again, just being able to keep ourselves heavily fortified all of the time. Then we have Debilitating Roar, just another massive defensive, make all enemies deal a lot less damage. Then upgrade 1, this also fortifies you massively again. Upgrade 2, you also heal for 4% of your maximum life each second this is active. So a very big heal, a massive fortify, and just making all enemies deal a lot less damage. Then we go down into the Wrath category and we get the Trample skill. This is one of our main movement abilities. So it's just a charge, makes you unstoppable, and can deal some decent damage, also knocks back enemies. And if you knock enemies into terrain, it deals more damage and stuns them. But usually I just end up using this as movement, so I'm not really focused on trampling enemies into walls. Then upgrade 1, Trample now deals more damage the less enemies it hits, so it can actually be decent damage against a boss. Then I'm currently using Savage Trample, which grants you 20 spirit when you cast it. Now if you're less geared and maybe you're not keeping yourself as fortified as you like, you can get Natural Trample, which gives you a massive fortify every time you cast it, but I'm fortified 100% of the time even without Natural Trample, and generating this spirit every time you cast it is really good, especially when you're not in combat and you're just walking around using Trample as a movement skill. Then we go down, grab our ultimate, Grizzly Rage. This is going to be a pretty big part of the build. We're unstoppable when in Grizzly Rage. We gain 20% bonus damage, 20% damage reduction, and it keeps increasing the damage bonus every second we're in it. We're going to be getting more effects that increase the duration of this, so it's just a massive cooldown that buffs basically everything. Upgrade 1, you're unstoppable while in it. This is massive again. We're going to be unstoppable so much of the time. And then upgrade 2, you're just constantly gaining more fortify while it's active, and because of some of the other effects we're getting in this build, Grizzly Rage is going to be up, I would say probably 80% of the time. Then our capstone, we have Earthen Might. Damaging enemies with an Earth skill has a 5% chance to restore all of your spirit and cause all of your attacks to be guaranteed crits for 5 seconds. So when this procs, it gives you both of those. And the chance for this to proc is increased for 10% for critical strikes and 10% if the target is stunned, immobilized, or knocked back. So just a very strong lucky hit proc that when this procs, our damage is going to be ridiculous. And going back to the top of the tree, we have our passives. And since we're not actually putting a lot of points into upgrading skills besides Pulverize, we basically get every every passive we want. So first off, Heart of the Wild, increase your maximum spirit just to get these other two passives. Basic skills grant 18% more spirit. If we need to use this, we want to get our spirit up very quickly. And then Wild Impulses, your core skills cost 18% more spirit, but deal 30% increased damage. Put 3 into this. I have 6 because I also have it on my necklace, I believe, but this is very strong. And if you can get more ranks into this, this is an incredibly strong passive for this build. Then we go down Predatory Instinct, increase critical strike chance against close enemies. You'll usually be close. You can be at range, but if something's close to you, it's probably something that's tankier, so you're going to want to kill it quicker anyway. Then 3 in Iron Fur, you gain damage reduction while in werebear form, and with how I have the build set up, we're in werebear 100% of the time when in combat. Then we go down to the companion category, get Nature's Reach, deal 9% increased damage to distant enemies. This is doubled if they're CC'd. Even though we have some stuff that's buffing close range and some stuff buffing long range, that's just kind of how this build works out, because if you're clearing tons of small enemies like off screen, stuff like this is going to be really good, but then tankier enemies are usually going to get into melee range with you. Then we go down into the ultimate category. We put 3 into Defiance, so nature skills deal more damage to elites. 1 into Circle of Life, skills that consume spirit, heal you for 1% of your maximum life. This is very good. We're going to be able to spam our Pulverize a lot, so this is going to heal us quite a bit. 3 into Natural Disaster, Earth skills deal more damage to vulnerable enemies, which we do have in another part of this build. And then Resonance, nature skills deal 6% increased damage, tripled if it's an Earth skill, and that's where basically all of our damage is coming from, are through Earth skills. And next up, we have our Spirit Boons. From the Deer, we want 10% reduced damage from elites, making us a bit more tanky. Next up, we have 30% increased critical strike damage. Then at the Wolf, we're getting extend the duration of ultimate skills by 25%. We want to be in Grizzly Rage as long as possible. Then we're getting 2 from the Deer. First off, every 20th kill will cause your next Earth skill to overpower. And with one of our other legendary aspects, Pulverize is an Earth skill as well. And then the most important, Calm Before the Storm. It's a lucky hit. Nature magic skills have up to a 10% chance to reduce the cooldown of your ultimate skills by 2 seconds. And with how this build's set up, basically all of our skills are also Earth skills. And then next up, we have our Paragon Boards. Now, to make this a bit more simple and not just super tedious, I'm mainly going to go over the board selection itself, our glyphs, and a handful of more important rare nodes. And again, I'm not done with my Paragon board. I'm not level 100 yet, so I still have some ways to go, and I'll probably end up redoing this a little bit, but for going through when you're not maxed out yet, this is going to be a very good way to go about it. So our first board, we have the Exploit glyph. You gain increased damage to vulnerable enemies for every 5 dexterity and range, but the main reason we want this is a secondary effect. When an enemy is damaged by you, they become vulnerable for 3 seconds. This has a 20-second cooldown on every enemy. So basically, every enemy we damage is going to have vulnerable applied to them for 3 seconds, and most of the time, you're going to kill enemies within that 3 seconds. We're applying vulnerable to everything very easily with this. And then we go up, and the first board we get is Survival Instinct. While in Werebear form, you deal 1% increased damage, up to 50% increased damage for every 1% difference in current life percent between you and the enemy. So if you're at, say, 100% life, you keep damaging an enemy, the more you damage them, the more damage you're going to be dealing to them. This is actually very good for this build. Then the glyph here is going to be Spirit. You deal more core skill damage for dexterity purchase within range, which is massive. Our Pulverize is a core skill. Then the secondary critical strikes increase the damage an enemy takes from you by 2% for 20 seconds, up to 12%. So if an enemy survives long, you're going to be dealing more and more damage to them. The secondary effect on this is primarily going to be used for bosses, because bosses are basically the only thing that can survive super long against us. And then up above this, we're taking the Ancestral Guidance board. After spending 75 spirit, you deal 30% increased damage for 5 seconds. In a lot of situations, especially AoE situations, you can probably have this up 100% of the time. So this is going to be more damage increase. And the reason we're going to this board second is because of this one rare node right here, Reclamation. Now it gives 8 maximum spirit, which actually does help a little bit, but the main thing is +2 spirit on kill. So just getting the rare gives you 2 spirit every time you kill something. Then one of the magic nodes gives 1 spirit on kill, and another one of the magic nodes gives another 1 spirit on kill. So you're getting 4 spirit every time you kill an enemy. And this is ridiculously strong in AoE situations. You can throw out 1 Pulverize, clear out a whole pack, and completely fill up your spirit. That's why in some of the gameplay, you'll basically see me never have to use my generator in AoE situations because of things like this. And this is one of the the most important nodes in the entirety of the Paragon boards, just because of how strong this actually is for this build. But then after you get the legendary and these plus spirit on kills, we're going to go down and actually get a board to the right over here, and this is going to be Earthen Devastation. Your earth skills deal 30% increased damage to enemies afflicted by crowd control, and because of some of our effects, enemies are always crowd controlled, so this is basically just 30% increased damage. Then the glyph we're getting here is Werebear. You deal increased damage while in Werebear form for all willpower within range. And then the secondary effect, you gain damage reduction while in Werebear form, and again, when we're in combat, we're going to be in Werebear 100% of the time. And then the newest board I'm working on is Constricting Tendrils. Now we're not actually going to get this power. The main reason we're going for this is because I'm going to go through this left side of the board, grab this glyph, then go up to the left, progress up through here, and get this glyph up here. So we're just going to make this diagonal shot to get these two last glyphs. And once we have those two glyphs, we're basically just going to be getting points within the range of all of our other glyphs. We're not going to be adding any more boards on top of this. And when you're going through getting more rare and magic nodes, basically just get anything that's going to be good for this build. We have Bulwark here, damage reduction while fortified. We're always fortified. We have damage while in Werebear form, armor while in Werebear form. We have resistances, then increased damage while in Werebear form. Basically all the rare nodes are going to be very simple for you to get once you understand how the build works. And then next up, we have our gear. So first off, I want to go over all the legendary aspects, starting off with on our weapon, though we already went over. Pulverize is now a big AoE and does more damage. This is our main aspect. You want it on a two-handed weapon. Then on our necklace, we have your core skills deal up to 60% increased damage based on your amount of fortify. This is incredibly strong. Again, I'm basically 100% fortified all the time, so this is going to be a massive damage increase for our pulverize. Then on ring 1, we have restore up to 4 of your primary resource when you crowd control an enemy. So this is just going to be a massive increase in the amount of spirit you can generate, because we're going to be crowd controlling quite a lot. And the roll on this legendary aspect is actually so ridiculous, because I started with a 1 roll for this, and the difference between a 1 and 4 roll on this specific legendary aspect is just ridiculous. So hopefully you have a high rolled version of this aspect. Then our second ring, Pulverize, is also now an earth skill. After casting Pulverize, tectonic spikes continue to deal damage in the area over 2 seconds. Now the damage over time from these tectonic spikes are nice, but the main reason we're getting this is because our Pulverize is now an earth skill. So it's also a nature skill, which synergizes with half the effects we just went over. So this is also one of the most important parts. Then for our gloves, we have the duration of Grizzly Rage is increased by up to 5 seconds. In addition, critical strikes while Grizzly Rage is active increases your critical strike damage by 10% for the duration. And this is just incredibly strong. We want to be in Grizzly Rage as long as humanly possible. Then on our legs, the duration of Earthen Bulwark is increased by 6 seconds. In addition, killing enemies with earth skills replenishes some of its barrier. So now our Earthen Bulwark lasts quite a long time. This is just going to give us big barrier. It's going to make us unstoppable. Just going to be a very strong defensive. Then on our boots, and this is incredibly important as well, damage from earth skills slow enemies hit by up to 50% for 5 seconds. Now the roll on this isn't that important. Primarily we want enemies just slowed by any amount because it's the crowd control effect. And a ton of the effects we just went over affect crowd controlled enemies. So this is going to cause us to slow basically every enemy we damage. Now I'm currently using 2 unique items for this build. First off, the Unsatiable Fury. Werebear is now our true form, and we gain +2 ranks to all Werebear skills. So this is going to allow us to be in Werebear 100% of the time. And this also has pretty good rolls. Physical damage, overpower damage, damage reduction while fortified, total armor while in Werebear form. All incredibly strong. And also while in Werebear form, we actually have enough armor for it to say we're reducing physical damage by 99%. We're not in bear form when in city, but when in combat, you're always going to be in Werebear, so you're going to be getting massive armor increases. You're going to be ridiculously tanky. And then the second unique is Vasili's Prayer. Your earth skills are also now Werebear skills and fortify you for up to 18. Now the primary reason we want this is so your earth skills are also now Werebear skills. So now Earthen Bulwark and Earth Spike can be cast while in Werebear form. This also means that while in Grizzly Rage, we can also cast Earthen Bulwark, and we can use Earth Spike as our generator while in Grizzly Rage. Because if you don't have this, when you cast Grizzly Rage, it'll replace your Earth Spike with Maul, which is a melee generator. This is the primary reason we want this, so we're in Werebear 100% of the time, and we can still be casting our Earth skills while in Grizzly Rage. And the stats on this unique are also pretty good. More overpower damage, damage increase while shapeshifted, maximum life. The lightning resistance kind of sucks because resistances are just really bad right now. Overall, very good, and we primarily want this for the effect. Now for our gems, we're going to want Sapphire in our armor and weapons. In your armor, we gain damage reduction while fortified, and our weapon, critical strike damage to crowd controlled enemies. Enemies are always crowd controlled anytime we hit them. Then in our jewelry, we want Skulls for increased armor. Now I still have a lot of optimization to go with the different stats on my gear. Now with the weapon primarily, if you're at the most endgame version of this build, you want to use a staff because its base roll gives increased damage to crowd controlled enemies. But I haven't found a super great staff yet, and with axes you gain a maximum increased damage to healthy enemies. This is actually pretty good when you're just farming up XP and doing lower to mid-ish nightmare dungeons to upgrade your glyphs, because healthy is above 80%, so this will actually help you be able to one or two shot most enemies in most of the content. But again, if you're doing super high level stuff, you're level 100 doing like crazy nightmare dungeons, you'll want that staff for damage to crowd controlled enemies. And then some of the best stats you can get: critical strike damage with earth skills, and damage to crowd controlled enemies. This would be much better if I didn't have the damage to stunned enemies and maybe damage to slowed enemies or something like that, because we don't actually stun a lot. On the boots, you want the boots to give you increased movement speed after evading. This build doesn't have a crazy amount of movement. This will help you move around a lot more. Spear cost reduction is very good on boots. Increased willpower is good. Fortified generation, honestly, I could probably remove from these boots. I could probably actually upgrade boots decently easily right now, just because of how much I fortify, especially with the unique helmet. But if you don't fortify as much, you're not as geared. A fortified generation may be good on the boots. Then increased dodge chance is decent, but I think my boots are probably one of the biggest pieces I can re-roll right now. On my legs, percent total armor while in Werebear, damage reduction while fortified, percent total armor increase, and just percent damage reduction. These legs actually give so much survivability, it's ridiculous. And that's primarily what you're going to be looking for. On our gloves, plus ranks to pulverize is going to be one of your main things. All stats is kind of a medium roll, but still pretty good if you can get it. Increase critical strike chance, then increase attack speed. Now these are also something I can re-roll. Remove the attack speed, don't really need that. And the all stats could also be re-rolled to something else and get a little bit better critical strike damage, or any of the other damage types we've been going over. Then on our necklace, we have spear cost reduction, pretty good roll. Percentage to willpower, that's actually a really good one. You definitely want that on your necklace, because any percentage increase to your main stats going to be very good. Ranks to wild impulses, this is the passive that makes our skills cost more spirit but do a lot more damage, so that's very good. The +3 ranks to wrath skills is okay because trample is a wrath skill, but we could also get a much better roll on that specific piece on the necklace. Then on the rings, critical strike damage with earth skills, damage to crowd controlled enemies, maximum life. Those are going to be the three big rolls. And then the last one is just going to be base critical strike damage, but critical strike chance is also going to be really good. And again, our other ring is decent. The maximum life, the critical strike damage with earth skills, physical damage, all really good. Resource generation, I would like to roll to just critical strike damage or critical strike chance. But that is the entirety of this build. This is very strong. This is easily one of the best builds I think that's in the game right now, especially if you're still leveling up into the end game, especially if you're running nightmare dungeons and hell tides. This is just so good for all AoE situations, but that's all I want to go over. So thanks for watching.